Hi, this is Mark News from Plant Talk Radio. Thanks for subscribing and listening to our podcast, Your Gardening Questions from Plant Talk Radio. If you have a gardening question you'd like our host Fred Howard to answer, send him an email. The email address is fred@planttalkradio.com. Now for today's question. Ashton, of course, this is maybe just about the peak time to get a lawn going.
Well, yeah, you can seed, you can weed, and you can feed. Not necessarily all the same day, but you can definitely, some lawns need some seeding, some patching. All lawns need feeding there in Ohio, according to all the experts at the Ohio State University, the agronomist, the Scots, everybody says feed your grass.
Yep. How long? Okay, let me put that this way. I would assume that feeding right now or just a few weeks ago on up a little ways is good. Then do you fertilize again in the season?
Yes. In fact, 2 feedings, maybe even 3 feedings. If you look at the recommendations from the Extension Service, you can go up to 3 times in the fall. If you feed 3 times in the fall, you probably don't need to do a lot of spring feeding. Mm-hmm. Maybe just, maybe you would just use a crabgrass preventer without a lawn food early in the spring if you're able to feed it 3 times in the fall. But three feedings in the fall are very important, 2 or 3 at least, because what happens is the feeding right now starts to help the lawn recover from the summer. Mm-hmm. And then the second feeding is where the real payoff comes, where it really helps to drive the root growth, because the plant wants to grow roots anyway going into winter because it wants to protect itself before the cold weather. But when you feed it at the time when it wants to grow roots, then it doubles up, it triples up, it puts down a lot more root growth, deeper and denser, and then that lawn is stronger next spring, stronger next summer because it's got a more extensive root system.
Now, when you talk about deeper, grass roots, at least in my understanding, are usually between ground zero and an inch below on down to about 5 or 6 inches. Is that correct?
That's about right.
Okay.
There are some grass species that will go even deeper, but the ones we tend to see there in Ohio tend to be, say, around up to 6 inches or so deep.
Okay. Now, when you fertilize then in the fall 2, possibly 3 times, does that drive the roots even deeper, or does it just more or less increase the mass of what is in that first 6 inches?
It actually does both.
Okay.
What ends up happening is the roots get denser.
Okay.
And so they're able then next summer, say, if you get into dry weather, you've got a more robust lawn because it's sturdier, it's got more root system, it's able to find and seek out the water than compared to a lawn that was starved going into the winter, where the root system's going to be kind of puny. Okay. Next spring, that lawn is going to probably suffer if you get into dry weather, especially next summer.
Now, things that make root systems and lawns puny come in a little white form, kind of a half circle, with mouth parts and a lot of white skin, if you will. Grubs. I have not been asked about grubs this year. I know this is the time of the year, though, when a lawn is usually in distress, and some in Ohio are, but where the grubs then take a greater toll because the grass isn't as able to recover as rapidly. Is this correct?
Yeah, that's going to be part of it.
Okay.
Grubs start feeding, and you really need to have enough of them there to really wipe out the root system. And so, the density of the grubs are, in other words, the count, how many you get per square foot. I'm thinking that it needs to be around 6 or 8 grubs per square foot in order for you to start to see the grass peel back like a carpet.
Okay.
And so right now, if the roots are thinning, and if you're getting rain, then the lawn is going to be able to maybe tolerate a few grubs. But then if you feed it, that's going to help it, kind of go the opposite direction of where the grubs. But if you find the grubs, a product like GrubX is really, you're past the time to put that down. You would have to use one of the 24-hour grub killers that claim 24 hours. They don't have a very long residual, but they will knock out grubs that have already there.
Great.
Hey, thanks again for listening to our podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our other podcasts as well, the Plant of the Week podcast and the Plant Talk Radio podcast, all on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. If you'd like to sponsor a daily podcast, contact us at fred@planttalkradio.com. To find out more about Fred Hauer and Plant Talk Radio, visit our website, planttalkradio.com.
Circle270media.com